What if I told you that in the depths of a Scandinavian winter, the greatest enemy wasn't a man with a sword? It was the cold itself. In the heart of the long night, fire was not just a luxury, it was life. Every calorie counted, from the food in the bowl to the fuel in the lamp. Energy was precious. In the frozen silence, they prayed not for gold, but for warmth and the return of the sun. Survival demanded ingenious engineering. They learned to extract light and heat from the very animals they hunted. The work never stopped. Barrels of supplies were rolled from the ships, storing wealth for the dark months. Inside, the longhouse was a sanctuary. Close to the fire, the family found safety from the biting wind. Gathering wood was a constant struggle. He brings in the fuel that keeps the cold death at bay. The smith knows the power of heat. Iron is shaped by fire, just as the Viking spirit is forged in the north.
It will warm
This
your
will
blood.
warm your blood, he says. Sharing food is the ultimate act of love and survival. Watch closely. From simple stone, they crafted vessels that would hold the liquid fire of the night. A simple act, placing fat in a lamp. Yet this small flame was the difference between sight and darkness. Welcome to the power of the long night. Here we explore how the Vikings conquered the dark. Survival in Scandinavia meant mastering the flame. Tending the lamp was a duty as vital as guarding the door. The winter was an oppressive entity. He stands watch, axe in hand, against the storm that seeks to enter. The fjord lies frozen, a mirror of ice reflecting the gray sky. The world outside is hostile and still. For months on end, the hearth was the center of the universe. Cooking, heating, living, all done here. Their world shrank to the size of a long house. Outside, the night ruled. Inside, a fragile warmth prevailed. Every time the door opened, the winter tried to rush in. A constant battle against the elements. The torch flickers in the wind, a small beacon of hope in a vast white landscape. Physical cold was a treacherous enemy. It seeped into the bones, demanding constant vigilance. Resources were scarce. He trudges through the deep snow, searching for anything that can burn. Gathering firewood was a dangerous expedition. Venturing out meant risking life and limb in the drifts. Wood was consumed at an alarming rate. The axe never rested, splitting logs to feed the hungry fire. The Lankes stood firm against the blizzard. Its turf walls insulated the life within from the storm without. It took enormous resources to keep a village alive. Every log hauled was a victory against the frost. Without fire, the home became an icy tomb. Even the embers must be guarded with care. This simple stone lamp was an economical, reliable source of light. A small flame with a big purpose. It could survive the night without supervision, a silent guardian watching over the sleeping family. Fat was a concentrated source of energy. Carved from the animal, it was fuel for the body in the lamp. On the hot stone, it melts. The solid becomes liquid, releasing the energy stored from the summer sun. And so the era of oil lamps began. Under the aurora, the Vikings found a way to extend the day. These lamps were the heart of the Scandinavian home. Their steady glow pushed back the shadows of the long night. They would wait for spring together, eating, sharing, and enduring by the light of the fire. It gave them a strategic advantage. Work could continue after sunset, sewing warm clothes for the winter. Tools and weapons were repaired in the dim light. Preparation for the raiding season never ceased. Art flourished in the dark. Intricate patterns were carved. Beauty created in the midst of hardship. Freydis stood her ground, the storyteller says.
Her ground.
Legends were passed down, keeping the history alive. In the rich, oily light, they gathered. Stories bonded them, creating a shared identity. You could see the faces of loved ones. The lamp allowed for connection in the deepest darkness. What was the greater threat? An external enemy or the endless winter? The answer was often the cold. Welcome to the gold of the north. Here, fat was more valuable than coin, the true source of fuel. Her breath mixes with the steam. In this freezing air, heat is visible, fleeting, and vital. Animal husbandry was the foundation. The livestock provided meat, milk, wool, and the crucial fat. Chopping tallow. This hard, yellow fat was the battery of the Viking age, stored energy for later use. Cows, sheep, goats. They were walking resources, essential for survival in the harsh climate. Rendering the fat was a key process, boiling it down to separate the pure fuel from the tissue. Skimming the surface, impurities were removed to ensure a clean burn and long storage life. Quality depended on thoroughness. The liquid gold was poured carefully, a precious commodity. Lard was a versatile product. Used for cooking, waterproofing, and lighting, it was indispensable. It could be stored for months. Preserving wood and leather, fat protected their gear from rot. Look at us now, he laughs. A full belly and a warm fire were the greatest wealth a man could know. The pantry was their bank vault. Rows of supplies meant security against the famine of winter. Rubbing fat into leather. Waterproofing was essential for shields and boots in the wet snow. The bounty of the sea. Seals provided meat, skins, and rich, oily blubber for the lamps. Blubber burned brightly. The intense heat and light from seal fat made it highly prized. Fishing also contributed. The livers of cod and shark were rich in oil, another source of light. Simmering the livers, extracting the oil was a smelly but necessary task for the coastal folk. Fish oil was more liquid than animal fat. It was easier to pour but burned with a stronger smell. Separating the fat, the butcher knew every cut, ensuring nothing of value was wasted. Internal fat was the highest quality fuel. Hard and pure, it burned the cleanest and longest. It smoked and smelled less. A good lamp with good fuel made the longhouse a pleasant home. The heart of fire, soapstone. This soft, gray rock was the secret to their durable lamps. Steatite or soapstone was easy to carve. It allowed them to shape bowls and lamps with simple tools. It had unique properties. It could absorb heat without cracking, making it perfect for the fire. It could withstand direct fire. Placed on coals, the stone would not shatter like normal rock. Intricate patterns were carved. Even functional items were made beautiful by the craftsman's hand. They carved bowls, pots, and lamps. Soapstone was the plastic of the Viking age, versatile and durable. But softness was only half the story. The true magic of soapstone lay in its thermal properties. It was a heat accumulator. Once hot, the stone held onto the warmth for a long time. It slowly absorbed heat. Sitting by the fire, the lamp itself became a source of warmth. He released it into the surrounding space. Even after the flame died, the stone radiated heat. A miniature heater. For a child's cold hands, a warm stone lamp was a comfort. It retained heat for hours, a portable warmth to carry through the freezing night. Production was on an industrial scale. Quarries worked tirelessly to meet the demand for these vessels. Thousands of artifacts have been found. The sheer number proves how essential these items were. Painstakingly hollowed out, each bowl required patience and skill to ensure it was uniform. The distinctive shape of Lysaker. Regional styles emerged, but the function remained the same. More complex versions appeared. Handles and decorations added value to the humble lamp. Each blow was carefully measured. One mistake could crack the stone and ruin the work. Too thin, it would crack. Too thick, and the fuel volume was reduced. Balance was key. Accessible to almost everyone. Unlike metal, stone was free for those willing to work it. Simple tools and patience. With just a chisel and time, anyone could make a lamp. A truly popular material. From cooking pots to casting molds, soapstone was everywhere. Heat accumulation made it in demand. It was the perfect vessel for the Viking home. The wick, the soul of the lamp. Without this simple component, the oil would not burn. Guess what common weed they used? Nature provided the perfect material in the bogs. The soul of the lamp. The wick drew the fuel up to the flame, a tiny pump made of fiber. Hygroscopicity and capillary action. The science behind the wick allowed the liquid to defy gravity. The liquid rose through fibers, feeding the flame steadily and controlling the burn. Combustion took place at the tip. The oil burned, not the wick itself, if managed correctly. The most accessible was bog moss. Sphagnum moss was abundant and free for the gathering. Phenomenal absorbency. Dried moss could hold many times its weight in liquid. Twisted into strands, prepared wicks were kept ready, a staple household item. Even though not very bright, the moss wick provided a reliable low light for hours. Long, economical burning. It stretched the fuel supply, making the winter survivable. Alternative to moss was waste from weaving. Scraps of linen and wool found a second use. Flax or hemp sheaves, the byproducts of textile production, became light. They did not throw away anything. In a resource-scarce world, everything had value. Old fabric was given a second life. A worn-out tunic became a winter's worth of light. Required maintenance. The wick had to be trimmed to prevent smoking and soot. Remove soot and tighten. Tools were made just for this delicate task. Intensity depended on position. Adjusting the wick controlled the brightness and fuel use. It would quickly consume fuel if too high. Management was key to efficiency. An important domestic skill. Even children learned how to tend the lamp properly. A simple system of 3 components: bowl, fuel, and wick. Ingenious in its simplicity. The height of efficiency. With no moving parts, it worked perfectly for centuries. How could this small flame heat an entire room? It was part of a larger system of survival. Liquid flame, the fuel hierarchy. Not all fats were created equal. Solid fat was the staple. Beef tallow was the standard by which all other fuels were measured. The fuel hierarchy depended on region, wealth, and season. What you burned showed who you were. Top of the hierarchy was pure beef or sheep fat. It was the gold standard for the wealthy. had the cleanest flame and the least smoke, ideal for indoor use in the longhouse. Fuel for living quarters. Only the best was used where people slept and ate. More affordable was pork fat, softer and easier to get, but with drawbacks. It did not keep as well and could go rancid. Storage was a challenge with pork fat. Fish oil made up a huge share of the fuel balance. Coastal communities relied on it. Cod liver, herring, whales. The sea provided what the land could not. Cheap and available in huge quantities, fish oil was the fuel of the common people. But it had a significant drawback: its smell. The odor was pervasive and heavy. A heavy, specific aroma filled the room. To a Viking, it smelled like home. To us, a stench, covering the walls with a greasy film. The soot from fish oil was thick and black. It smoked more heavily. Ventilation was crucial when burning marine oils. The fat of marine mammals, blubber, was a powerhouse of energy. Incredibly high-calorie fuel, it produced a light brighter than any other source. Valued in craft workshops, where precision was needed, the bright light of blubber was preferred. Pine resin or sap was another option. Gathered from the forests, it was sticky and flammable. It burns too quickly on its own. Pure resin was dangerous and impractical for lamps. Resin acted as a thickener. Mixed with fat, it created a durable fuel for torches. Street torches burned with this mixture, lighting the way through the snowy village paths. Signal fires blazed on the peaks. The resin ensured they burned bright and hot in the wind. The economics of waste. In a Viking home, trash did not exist. There was no such thing as garbage. Every object had a potential second use. Every remnant had its value. From hoof to horn, the animal was fully utilized. Bones were not thrown away. They held the last reserves of fat deep inside. Boiled in water for a long time, the process extracted every calorie the bone had to offer. Fat floated to the surface. It was skimmed off, a murky treasure from the pot. Bone fat was low quality, but when the winter is cold, quality matters less than heat. It was the last energy that could be extracted, the final line of defense against the dark. Birch bark was nature's perfect starter. Even wet, it could spark a flame. Bitumen provided natural waterproofing. The chemical inside the bark made it flammable in any weather. Harvested without killing the tree, they took what they needed, respecting the forest. The tinder bracket fungus. A strange growth on the tree was the key to starting fire. Amadou, a fat-like material, processed with ash and water, it became the perfect spark catcher. It could catch the faintest spark. Even a single ember was enough to start a blaze. High carbon steel met flint. The technology of fire starting was advanced and reliable. A shower of sparks. The birth of fire began with a strike of metal on stone. The ember grows. Breath feeds the tiny glow, turning heat into flame. The birth of fire. From a spark to a roar, the hearth comes alive. The central fire was the heart. It cooked, It warmed, and it lit the home. Aerodynamics of the longhouse. The smoke vent drew the fumes up, keeping the air breathable. A thermal lock. The smoke layer trapped heat, insulating the roof from the cold outside. Banking the fire. At night, the embers were buried to sleep, ready to wake in the morning. The house's living soul. As long as the embers glowed, the home was alive. Restarting the fire. A fresh start to a new day of survival. A sign of life. Smoke rising from the roof told neighbors that the family still endured. Fire was not the only source of heat. Clothing was the first layer of defense. Insulation properties of wool. It kept them warm even when wet, a miracle fiber. Natural waterproofing. Lanolin in the wool repelled the snow and rain. Ancient predecessor to knitting. Nape binding created dense, warm garments that didn't unravel. Layering strategy. Linen against the skin, wool on top. Trapping air to trap heat. Shared body heat. At night, the family became a single unit of warmth. Microclimate of the bed. Under the furs, a small warm world existed safe from the frost. Living radiators. The animals in the byre contributed their body heat to the house. Winter rations. Stockfish, dried and hard, held the calories of the ocean. Calories from the sea. Pounding the fish made it edible, fueling the body for work. Preserved summer sunlight. Cheese and butter stored the energy of the grass and sun. Fermentation kept scurvy at bay. Preserved foods provided vital nutrients in the dead of winter. Sharpening the mind. Games like Hnefatafl kept their wits sharp during the long confinement. Passing of knowledge. Elders taught the young, ensuring skills survived the winter. Preparing for spring. Nets were mended, ready for the ice to break. Morale in the darkness. Music lifted spirits when the sun refused to shine. Weapons ready. A warrior never let his blade dull,
Preparing
even
for
in
spring.
peace. Sanctuary against the elements. The longhouse was a fortress against the storm. Safety. Inside, the roar of the wind was just a reminder of
Weapons
their protection.
ready.
Midwinter traditions. Yule brought hope and celebration to the darkest days. Burning for days, the Yule log was a symbol of enduring light and warmth. Calling back the sun, toasts were drunk to ensure the return of the light. A story to pass the night. The skald wove tales of gods and heroes. He raised the hammer high. Thor battled the giants, a mirror of their own struggle against the cold. Blazing bright against the frost giants.
To pass
The lightning
night.
was his weapon, fire against ice. Echoed through the 9 realms, the stories connected them to a larger universe of myth. The waves crashed high. The ocean was a monster, tamed only in stories. Essence of a winter evening. Smoke, fire, and voice blending into memory. Deep shadows. The flickering light played tricks, bringing the monsters of the story to life. Freydis stood her ground, a hero who faced the storm and the enemy without fear. Defying the invaders, her courage was a lesson for them all. The lamp's fire was quiet. In contrast to the tales of war, the home fire burned in peace. Rich, oily light. It was the color of safety, of civilization holding back the wild. See the faces of loved ones. The light revealed what was truly important: family. Wait for spring. Patience was the ultimate virtue of the North. What do you think was more frightening, the darkness outside or the hunger within? External enemy or endless winter? Perhaps the cold was the only foe that could never be defeated. Write about it in the comments. Share your thoughts on the Viking struggle. Subscribe to the channel. Join us for more journeys into the past. Just us together. In the end, community was their greatest survival tool. The gods willing, hope was whispered with every prayer. Watch to the end. Simple animal fat. The secret to their light was in the humble tallow. Crushing bones. Even the skeleton yielded life when processed with care. Boiling fragments. The gray grease rising was not waste, but fuel. Skimming the fat. Every drop saved was another minute of light. Last energy extracted. They took everything the animal gave, leaving nothing behind. Technical fish oil, cloudy and smelly. It wasn't pretty, but it burned. Fuel of the poor, but even the poor had light in the Viking Age. First calories into food, sustaining people. Survival came first, comfort second. Remaining calories into light, what couldn't be eaten, illuminated the dark. Not poverty, but wisdom. This wasn't desperation, it was efficiency. Survive in limited resources, a lesson from the past for our future. Symbol of sustainability. The lamp represents a harmony with nature's gifts. Nothing went to waste. A philosophy that ensured the survival of a people. Sensory experience, special smells. The past had a scent we can only imagine. Integral part of life. The haze was home, a sign of warmth and safety. Main component, burning fat. The smell of cooking and light was one and the same. Neutral versus heavy, suffocating smell. The difference between wealth and poverty was in the air. Dust motes in the oily haze. Light had texture in the Viking longhouse. Fine soot settled on everything. The darkness left its mark on every surface. Smell of smoke, constant background. The scent of wood smoke was the scent of life. Smell of wet wool, damp sheep and lanolin, the aroma of winter clothing. Freshly tanned leather and tar, sharp, pungent smells of craft and repair. Smell of livestock, hay, manure. Animals and humans lived as one in the cold. Smell of unwashed bodies, sweat, intimacy in a crowded space was unavoidable. Heavy, thick, low in oxygen. The air was close, but it was warm. Smell of home, security. To them, this mix of odors meant they were safe. Well done, wife. We are safe here. Gratitude for the sanctuary they built together. Simple necessity, ingenious technology. The lamp was a marvel of adaptation. Not just a fixture, survival system. More than light, it was heat and life. Perfect combination. Material, fuel, design. Stone, fat, and moss worked in harmony. Extract energy from everything, nothing to waste. The ultimate lesson of the Viking winter. Not poverty, but
well
wisdom.
Done, wife.
They thrived because they understood their world. Future videos, metallurgy, shipbuilding. Join us as we explore more of their secrets. Suggest topics, subscribe. Let us know what you want to discover next. Respect for ancient craftsmen. We honor those who built a civilization in the ice. See you on new journeys. Until the next saga begins. The light in the window fades into the vast starry night,
but wisdom.
but the fire burns on. Under the dancing lights of the north, the Vikings endured. Their spirit lives on in the tools they left behind, whispering tales of survival. From the humble lamp to the mighty ship, every object tells a story of resilience. We look back to learn, to remember, and to understand the strength of the human will. The long night may return, but the knowledge of the flame remains with us. Farewell from the north. May your own fires never burn low.